Chapter 1. The breaking point, the Seattle rain hammered against the windows of the law office as Sarah Martinez sat across from her soon-to-be ex-husband Marcus. The mahogany conference table felt like an ocean between them, scattered with divorce, papers that would officially end their 8-year marriage. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on Marcus's face, making his usual charming smile appear cold and calculating. "I'm keeping the house in Bellevue," Marcus announced, his voice carrying that familiar tone of authority that had once made Sarah feel protected, but now only reminded her of how small he'd made her feel. "After all, I'm the one who's been carrying the financial burden while you played around with your little marketing projects." Sarah's lawyer, Jennifer Chen, cleared her throat. "Mr. Rodriguez, the prenup clearly states—" "Dead weight," Marcus interrupted, his dark eyes fixed on Sarah. "That's all you've been for the last 3 years. Dead weight that I've been dragging along while building my career in tech consulting. Now that I'm finally getting that promotion at Nexus Solutions, I don't need to pretend anymore." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. Outside, the November rain seemed to intensify, matching the storm brewing inside her chest. She had supported Marcus through his MBA program, working double shifts at the marketing agency where she was just an account coordinator. She had believed in them, in their future together. "Dead weight," she repeated quietly, her voice barely audible over the rain. "Is that really what you think of me?" Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, adjusting his expensive tie. "Sarah, let's be realistic. You're 32 and still in the same entry-level position you had when we met. I'm about to become a senior partner at one of Seattle's top consulting firms. We're just on different levels now." Jennifer shot Sarah a warning look, but Sarah was already standing. Her hands trembled slightly as she gathered her purse and coat. The room felt suffocating, filled with the weight of broken promises and shattered dreams. "You know what, Marcus?" Sarah's voice grew stronger with each word. "You're right about one thing. We are on different levels. But you're wrong about which one of us is going down." She walked toward the door, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. Just before leaving, she turned back one last time. Marcus was already scrolling through his phone, dismissing her as easily as he had dismissed their marriage. "Sign whatever papers you want," she said. "Keep the house, keep your promotion, keep your perfect little life. But don't you dare call me dead weight when you've never even seen what I'm capable of." The door closed behind her with a soft click, but inside Sarah's mind it sounded like a gunshot. The start of a race she was determined to win. Chapter 2. Rising from the ashes. 2 years later, Sarah stood in the floor-to-ceiling windows of her downtown Seattle office, watching the morning mist roll off Elliott Bay. The view from the 20th floor of the Columbia Center was breathtaking, but she barely noticed anymore. Her mind was focused on the quarterly reports spread across her glass desk, each page representing another milestone in what had become the most successful 2 years of her life. "Sarah, the team from Portland just confirmed," announced Jake Morrison, her business partner and CTO, as he entered her office carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Dataflow wants to sign the 3-year contract. That's another $2 million in guaranteed revenue." Sarah accepted the coffee gratefully, inhaling the rich aroma of the Ethiopian blend Jake always brought from the cafe downstairs. At 34, she looked nothing like the broken woman who had walked out of that law office. Her dark hair was cut in a sleek bob that framed her face perfectly, and her tailored navy suit spoke of confidence and success. But it was her eyes that had changed the most. They held a fire that hadn't been there during her marriage. "That brings us to 12 million in total contracts this year," she said, settling into her ergonomic chair. "Not bad for a company that started in my studio apartment with a maxed-out credit card. Catalyst Marketing Solutions had grown from Sarah's desperate attempt to reinvent herself into Seattle's fastest-growing digital marketing firm. What started as freelance work for small businesses had evolved into a full-service agency, with 23 employees and clients ranging from tech startups to established Fortune 500 companies. "The Forbes interview is scheduled for next week," Jake reminded her, his laptop already open to their project management system. "They want to focus on the Phoenix Rising angle, how you went from divorce to CEO in less than 2 years. Sarah's jaw tightened slightly at the mention of her divorce. She had worked hard to keep her personal life separate from her professional success, but the business community in Seattle was small and stories traveled fast. "Just make sure they focus on the company's achievements, not my personal drama," she said, pulling up the employee roster on her computer. "Speaking of which, we need to hire 3 more senior consultants to handle the data flow account. Jennifer in HR sent over some resumes yesterday. As she scrolled through the applications, one name made her freeze. The coffee cup slipped from her fingers, but she caught it just before it could spill across her desk. There, in black and white, was a resume that made her heart race for all the wrong reasons. Marcus Rodriguez, Senior Marketing Consultant, recently laid off from Nexus Solutions due to corporate restructuring. Jake noticed her sudden tension. "Sarah, you look like you've seen a ghost." She stared at the resume, taking in the carefully crafted language that couldn't quite hide the fact that Marcus's career had taken a dramatic downturn. The promotion he'd been so confident about had apparently never materialized. Instead, his LinkedIn profile showed a series of increasingly short-term positions at smaller firms. "Not a ghost," she said slowly, a strange smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Just someone from my past who's about to become very much part of my present." Chapter 3. The Interview. The next Monday morning arrived crisp and clear, with Mount Rainier visible in the distance like a snow-capped sentinel watching over the city. Sarah had spent the weekend wrestling with her decision, alternating between the mature choice of having Jake conduct the interview and the deeply satisfying prospect of facing Marcus herself. In the end, professionalism won, but just barely. She was reviewing contracts when her assistant Maya knocked on the door. "Sarah, your 10 o'clock is here. Should I send him to conference room B?" "Actually, I'll meet with him in my office," Sarah decided, her pulse quickening despite her outward calm. "Give me 2 minutes, then send him in." She stood and smoothed, her charcoal grey dress checking her reflection in the window. The successful CEO looking back at her bore little resemblance to the insecure woman Marcus had dismissed as dead weight. She had earned every inch of this office, every client, every success story that lined her walls. The knock came exactly 2 minutes later. "Come in." Marcus entered, and Sarah watched his confident stride falter as he realized who was sitting behind. The CEO's desk. His resume had mentioned 8 years of marketing experience, but it hadn't prepared him for this moment. He was still handsome at 35, his dark hair now touched with grey at the temples, but there were lines around his eyes that spoke of stress and disappointment. "Sarah?" His voice was uncertain, nothing like the authoritative tone she remembered from their marriage. "Please have a seat, Marcus." She gestured to the chair across from her desk, the same setup she used for all her interviews. "I see you're interested in our senior consultant position." He sat slowly, his eyes taking in the office's impressive decor, the awards on the walls, the view that spoke of serious success. I had no idea this was your company. Catalyst Marketing Solutions. I should have made the connection." "Should. You have." Sarah leaned back in her chair, her expression professionally neutral. "Tell me, what makes you think you'd be a good fit for our team?" The next 20 minutes were surreal. Marcus, the man who had once called her dead weight, was now explaining why he deserved a job at the company she had built from nothing. His answers were polished but desperate, the responses of someone who needed this opportunity more than he wanted to admit. My experience at Nexus Solutions gave me insight into enterprise-level client management, he was saying, his hands gesturing as he spoke. I understand the challenges that mid-sized companies face when trying to scale their marketing efforts. Interesting, Sarah said, making notes on his resume. According to your LinkedIn, you were at Nexus for less than 18 months. That seems like a short time to develop deep expertise. A flush crept up Marcus's neck. There were some organizational changes. Budget cuts affected several departments. I see. Sarah set down her pen and looked at him directly. Marcus, I have to ask, are you comfortable working for a woman, specifically working for me? The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Marcus shifted in his chair, and for a moment she saw a flash of the old arrogance in his eyes before it was quickly replaced by something that looked almost like respect. Sarah, I owe you an apology, he said quietly. The things I said during our divorce, they were cruel and unfair. You've clearly accomplished something remarkable here. She studied his face, looking for signs of the manipulation she knew he was capable of. But what she saw instead was something she'd never seen from him before, genuine humility. We'll be in touch, she said finally, standing to signal the end of the interview. Maya will show you out. After he left, Sarah stood at her window, again watching his figure disappear into the crowd of downtown professionals. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jake. How did it go with the Nexus guy? She typed back. Interesting. Very interesting. Chapter 4. Full Circle. 3 weeks later, Marcus Rodriguez walked into Catalyst Marketing Solutions as their newest senior consultant. Sarah had spent those weeks weighing her decision, consulting with Jake, and ultimately choosing to trust her instincts as a businesswoman rather than her emotions as an ex-wife. He's qualified, she had told Jake during their final discussion. His client portfolio is impressive, and he does have experience we can use. Besides, if he can't handle working for his ex-wife, that says more about him than it does about me. Now, watching Marcus settle into his new workspace through her office window, Sarah felt a complex mix of emotions. The bullpen of Catalyst Marketing was buzzing with its usual energy, account managers on calls with clients, designers collaborating over mock-ups, the coffee machine working overtime to fuel Seattle's caffeinated workforce. Maya knocked and entered with the morning's schedule. Your 11 o'clock with the Peterson Group moved to 2, and the data flow kickoff meeting is set for Thursday. Also, Marcus asked if he could have a few minutes with you when you're free. Send him in now, Sarah decided. Marcus appeared in her doorway, looking more at ease than he had during the interview, but still carrying himself with the careful posture of someone walking on thin ice. Thank you for seeing me, he said, closing the door behind him. I wanted to discuss the Henderson account transition, but first... He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. I need to say something that's been weighing on me since I started here. Sarah gestured for him to sit, but remained standing herself, maintaining the subtle power dynamic that came with her position. I've been watching how you run this company, Marcus continued, the way your team respects you, the innovation in your campaigns, the client relationships you've built. 3 years ago, I called you dead weight. He shook his head as if still amazed by his own blindness. I was wrong. I was so wrong that I can't even begin to explain how I could have been that blind. The admission hung between them, more honest than anything he'd ever said during their marriage. Sarah felt a strange sensation, not quite vindication, but something close to closure. You were wrong, she agreed simply. But Marcus, I didn't hire you to relitigate our marriage. I hired you because Catalyst needs experienced consultants, and despite everything, you are good at what you do. I know, and I appreciate that. But I also know this can't be easy for you, having me here, working for you. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she remembered from their years together. If my being here makes things complicated, Adi, only thing that would make this complicated, Sarah interrupted, is if you can't handle the fact that your dead-weight ex-wife is now your boss. Can you handle that? Marcus looked up at her, and for the first time since he'd walked into her office 3 weeks ago, he smiled. Not the practice smile of someone trying to impress, but something genuine and perhaps a little amazed. Yes, he said, I can handle that, and Sarah, congratulations on all of this. He gestured toward the windows, encompassing not just her office, but everything she'd built. You deserve every bit of success you've achieved. After he left, Sarah remained at her window, watching the afternoon light play across Elliott Bay. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. How's it going with Marcus working there? She considered the question, thinking about the journey that had brought her from that devastating day in the lawyer's office to this moment. The rain had started again, typical for Seattle in March, but instead of the angry downpour of that November day 2 years ago, this was a gentle spring rain that made the city look fresh and full of possibility. Better than expected, she typed back. Turns out the dead weight floats just fine. She turned back to her desk, where the quarterly reports showed Catalyst Marketing Solutions on track to hit $15 million in revenue by year's end. Tomorrow, she had a meeting with a potential investor who wanted to discuss expansion into Portland and San Francisco. Next month, the Forbes article would hit newsstands, cementing her reputation as one of Seattle's rising business stars. And Marcus Rodriguez, the man who had once dismissed her dreams, would be part of the team making it all happen. Sometimes, Sarah reflected as she dove back into her work, the best revenge really was living well. But having your ex-husband witness that success firsthand, that was just the cherry on top. Outside her window, Seattle sparkled in the rain, and Sarah Martinez, CEO, success story, and definitely not dead weight, smiled as she planned her company's bright future.